right, folks, good evening. Thank you all for coming to our financial aid event. This is the first one that we've held like this since I've been here. This is my 6th year. We always do a FAFSA help night, which I'm going to talk about briefly here in a minute. But this is the first more of an informational night, which listening to our seniors would be something that would be beneficial, so we're glad we can put this on. I'm going to do some introductions in just a minute. But before I forget, I know this event was originally posted for 1 hour, but then I asked for some additional information to be shared, and then I'm going to share at the end. So I thought there's a chance we could run over. We're going to do our very best though to get you out of here in an hour. We know some of our seniors have National Honor Society induction tonight, and if you need to slip out for that, we totally understand. So I'm going to get started here in just a second. I'm one of the school counselors here at TLH. Can you all hear me in the back? Yeah, great, okay. Anyway, I manage a lot of the events for seniors, the FAFSA Help Night, Senior Newsletter, College Application Day. That's kind of a passion of mine. So if you have senior-related questions, feel free to reach out to me because I'm usually the one heading up those events. But let me start with some introductions. Erin McCraw is not here tonight, but I just wanted to thank her for helping organize this event. We reached out to her to help bring in our speakers tonight, and so she was very gracious in helping coordinate that. But our first speaker tonight, coming up in just a minute, is Renee Campbell. She is at Anderson University as a financial aid counselor. And then after her, we have Andy K. Calvert. She's in the Department of Admissions and Director for Traditional Admissions. So they'll both be sharing some information. By the way, this PowerPoint that I have will be on, we'll post it in the Senior Google Classroom, and in a minute when we switch gears to our AD folks, the PowerPoint that they shared will be in the Senior Google Classroom. And also, we're recording this, so that was kind of a last minute thought I had. I know some of our folks may not be able to see it again, so we're going to record this and share that as well. But we'll go ahead and get started here. Before I turn it over, I did mention this event. This is coming up November 11th, and this is an event that we do hold every year. And there'll be lots of reminders in the Senior Google Classroom and to our parents in email in the days ahead. But this is an annual event called our FAFSA Help Night, and that is an event where our seniors and a parent or guardian are encouraged to attend as well. And they bring their Chromebook, and they work on their FAFSA in the library with the assistance of financial aid representatives, usually from Tri-County and AU. So that's more of a hands-on, help you get started on your FAFSA if you haven't already. But that's coming up November 11th, so we'll talk more about that in the days and weeks to come. And I'm going to switch over to the other PowerPoint here. Okay, so you want to start
So thank y'all for being here tonight and taking time out of your schedules to come learn a little more about financial aid. My name is Renee Campbell. As said, I'm a financial aid counselor at Anderson University. I know you got a lot of questions about financial aid, so we'll get started. So first off, there's three main types of financial aid. There's scholarships, grants, and loans. not need to be repaid, and they are typically awarded based on things like grades, test scores, and merit. And then loans, of course, are funds that do need to be repaid. And then grants, like loans, don't need to be repaid. And those are typically awarded based on need. So the cost of attendance is your estimated, and I do say that, estimated cost of tuition, student fees, things like your housing, your meal plan, and your transportation. Your cost of attendance is not your bill, and that's not what you're necessarily going to pay. It's an estimate of all the expenses that you may incur during the academic year. And the amount and type of award is based on your student's cost of attendance. In that cost of attendance, there are direct costs and indirect costs. Your direct costs are the charges that you will see on your bill, things like your tuition, your housing, your meal plan. And then those indirect costs, that is like a cost of living estimate. Those are not going to be included on your bill, but it's just an estimate to help you plan for expenses that you may not have thought of, like if you're a commuter, your gas money, if you're on campus where you're going to need to buy things for your dorm room, like storage or sheets and those types of things that you might not have thought of. There is some expense in that, so it's just to sort of help you with an estimate for that cost of living. And probably what everybody's really interested in, the FAFSA, is the free application for federal student aid. And you can do it online. Again, like you mentioned, the FAFSA Help Night is a great opportunity because it can sit down and help walk you through that. It's important to apply early, and it's typically open October 1st. The 26th, 27th, though, is already open, so you can go ahead and be getting a start on that. And for South Carolina residents, if you're planning to start in the fall, you'll want to go ahead and apply by August 1st of 2026 for fall of 26. If you want to be considered for the need-based South Carolina tuition grant, we'll talk more about that. So before you can even get started on that FAFSA, you have to create your FSA ID. And that's going to be your username and password that you're going to use to access your FAFSA. And you're going to need that every year because you're going to need to complete the FAFSA every year that your student's in school. And so you'll want to treat that like car keys. You don't want to lose that because if you do, it's a really big hassle. So you want to try to keep that in a safe place. Also, when you're creating that FSA ID, you'll want to use a personal email. You don't want to use a student email or a work email because if that situation changes and you don't have access to that email anymore, that's going to create issues as well. So you want to use your personal email when you create that. So you'll go to the FAFSA website, that link right there, and after you have created that FSA ID, you're going to use that to log in and complete the FAFSA. You'll want to make sure that you do the 26-27 FAFSA. There's other years that are like 25-26 is still open, so you want to make sure you select the correct year. And consent to have your tax information imported for the 26-27. That's going to be your 2024 taxes. And even if you didn't file taxes, you need to consent to have that tax information imported because otherwise all your students are going to be offered as unsubsidized loans. So even if you didn't file taxes, consent to have that tax information imported. And then we'll list your desired schools. You can list up to 20. And then when you do that, they will receive your FAFSA for consideration. So if you haven't decided where you want to go yet, you've got 20 choices of places you can have it sent so that they'll have that information and it can package you for aid. And you want to, of course, answer all the required sections and then electronically sign and submit. Some folks have gotten to the end and thought they didn't sign or thought they signed it and they didn't, or forgot to hit submit. They did everything else, but they forgot to hit submit. So just make sure that you complete all the steps on that so it can be processed. Again, even if you didn't file taxes, consent to have that imported from the IRS. So how was your need determined? The student aid index is a figure that's generated on the FAFSA using your things like your family size, your income, and assets. If you have an older college student, this was formerly called the EFC, so the SAI has replaced that. It's now called the SAI. And the difference between the school's total cost of attendance and your FAFSA student aid index is going to be what determines your need. So that's how you're going to figure out if you qualify for any of those need-based. Your dependency status, most of the undergrad students are going to be listed as dependent students, which means they and one parent are going to need to complete the FAFSA. Again, you and a parent will have to do that together. And even if a student pays for everything themselves, that doesn't automatically qualify you as an independent student. Independent students are things like if they're married or have their own children, dependents of their own, if they're veterans, orphaned. Also, if you have a legal guardianship, that would be an independent student. And if you've already completed your first bachelor's degree. But again, most students are going to fall into that dependent, even if they pay their own way. They don't necessarily get to claim that independent status. So that confuses a lot of people sometimes. Some FAFSAs, after they've been submitted, are selected for a process called verification by the Department of Education. And if you're selected, then there will be financial aid administrators. It could be at any one of the 20 schools that you sent your FAFSA to. They will ask for things like income tax returns, 1099s. Sometimes you might be selected for verification as far as your ID. So you may have to come in and show them your photo ID just to verify that you are who you claim to be when you completed the FAFSA and it's not fraudulent. If you're selected for verification, it's important to try to complete that as quickly as possible so it doesn't delay your packaging for aid. If you send it to, say Clemson, Lander, and Tri-County, if Tri-County comes back and says you've been selected for verification, you need to get that done as quickly as possible because none of the schools will be able to package you until you've completed that process with the school that's told you you've been selected for verification. So, as I said before, the 26-27 FAFSA is based on your 2024 taxes. We'll just realize things can change in the meantime. A lot of life can happen in 2 years. So sometimes it's necessary to do what's called a professional judgment in special circumstances. Some examples of that can be if you lost your job, if you had a separation or divorce, any extraordinary out-of-pocket medical expenses. We've had students who might have a parent who has cancer, and so there's really high medical bills. We've also had students that their house flooded, and so there was a lot of really high out-of-pocket expenses after insurance paid. So if you have something like that happen, you can reach out to financial aid administrators and let them know you have a special circumstance. You need to request that professional judgment. And however, not everything qualifies as a professional judgment. And in some cases, we may not be allowed to do the professional judgment based on what the situation is. So just always reach out to the financial aid administrators, let them do any of the corrections, let them walk you through that process. So just as there's 3 types of financial aid, there's also different sources for financial aid. On the federal side, these are ones where you absolutely have to complete that FAFSA to be considered for these. The Pell Grant, again, is it's need-based. So it'll be evaluating your finances and your situation to see whether or not you qualify for that need-based aid. If you happen to qualify for the maximum amount of Pell Grant, then you would also get the SEOG. And everyone gets offered federal loans. It's just a matter of which types of loans, and we'll talk more about that shortly. Also, to be considered for the South Carolina tuition grant, you have to also complete the FAFSA to be considered for that. And again, there's that August 1st deadline to be evaluated for that to see if you're eligible. And like the Pell Grant, the South Carolina tuition grant is need-based. And then there's state merit. That's your Palmetto Fellows, Life, Hope Scholarships, and the enhancements that go with them. And then institutional aid varies by the different schools. So it's only for use at those schools. So if you were to get offered a scholarship at Clemson, you can't take it and then go to Anderson with it and vice versa. It's just for that school. And at AU, that's determined by admissions. Some schools do it differently, but the admissions department are the ones that determine that institutional aid. Also, private and outside sources, that's those outside scholarships. There's scholarships all over the place. There are private companies that offer scholarships. I've heard of organizations like the Ruritan Club, and if your student is in a school club, there may be scholarships that they offer. I know FFA has one, FPLA has used those in the past. And there's even places like banks and credit unions sometimes offer those, I think. There's actually the state fair has a scholarship. So there might be scholarships at places you wouldn't necessarily think to look. And you can see what's out there as far as in your local community. There might be some that are available. So for student loans, everybody's encouraged to take the least amount possible because they are loans that have to be repaid. But each year, your financial aid package is going to have the maximum amount you're eligible to receive. So for freshmen, the total that a dependent freshman can receive for the year is $5,500, $6,500 for sophomores, and $7,500 for juniors and seniors. And then in order for that loan to disperse to the account, even after you've accepted it, you have to go and complete entrance counseling and a master promissory note that's agreeing to pay back the loan on the FAFSA website. So that loan will not be able to disperse until those have been completed. And the student loans are going to be in the student's name for them to repay. Also, if you don't need all $5,500 for the year, you can reach out to your financial aid office and request that they adjust the loan. If you want it to only cover your balance and you don't need the full $5,500, you can reach out and they can adjust that down for you so that you're not taking more loans than you need to take for the year. So these are the different types of federal loans that are available for students. There is the subsidized loans. Those are need-based, and that's again going to be determined by your FAFSA. And it's subject to change. You may qualify freshman year, and things change, and you not qualify sophomore year. It's going to be determined each year by your FAFSA. The important thing about subsidized loans to know is they don't accrue interest until after you graduate or fall below half. And for the unsubsidized loans, your eligibility is not based on need. So if you didn't qualify for the subsidized loans, you'll have all unsubsidized loans. It's possible to have a combination of some subsidized and unsubsidized. It's all based on where you fall in that need base as far as the SAI. And the other thing to note about the unsubsidized is they are going to accrue interest as soon as they disperse to your account. So if you take it in freshman year, once it disperses to your account, it's going to start accruing interest. I did some calculations based on the current interest rate of 6.39%. If you were to take the current student loan freshman year, by the time you graduate, you're looking at a little over $1,400 in interest. So that's just something to be aware of. And the current origination fee for that is 1.057%. Now that's on the unsubsidized loans. Again, the subsidized loans don't accrue interest until after you graduate. There's also a 6-month grace period for repayment on those loans. So for the South Carolina tuition grant, that is a $5,000 a year need-based grant. That's the amount that was for 25-26. It could change. Last year it was $4,800. So maybe the same again this year. They haven't totally announced that for 26-27 yet. But you must attend a private South Carolina college to receive that grant. It's not available at public colleges. The 26-27 FAFSA, again, has to be done by August 1st of 26 for you to be considered, whether or not you're eligible for that. So if you do it after August 1st, even if you would have qualified, unfortunately, you wouldn't be eligible. So into the merit-based scholarships from South Carolina. The first is the $6,700 Palmetto Fellows. To earn that, you need to get a 3.5 GPA, 1,200 SAT, or 25 ACT, and rank in the top 6% of your class. That said, if you don't rank in the top 6%, but you manage to earn a 4.0 GPA and a 1,400 SAT or 31 ACT, you can also have the opportunity to earn Palmetto Fellows. And the student applies through your school guidance counselor and or administrator. For that to renew in your second year, it goes up to $7,500 if you meet the renewal requirements. You have to have a 3.0 cumulative institutional GPA and earn 30 credits each year. And for Palmetto Fellows, you won't be able to count any of your AP or dual enrollment credits in those 30 credits for the year. If you did not meet the 3.0 GPA and earn 30 credits during your freshman year, for it to renew the following year, you would lose Palmetto Fellows, but you may still be eligible for the life scholarship. So that's important to note. If you earn Palmetto Fellows, you have to meet those renewal requirements, because if you lose Palmetto Fellows, you can't get it back, unfortunately. So for the life scholarship, that is $5,000 a year award. And to earn that, you only have to meet 2 of the 3 following criteria. Graduate with a minimum 3.0 GPA, an 1,100 SAT or 22 ACT, and rank in the top 30% of your graduating class. To have that renew the following year, you would need to have a 3.0 cumulative collegiate GPA and earn 30 credit hours. Different from Palmetto Fellows, if you have life, your AP credits and your dual enrollment credits can count towards that 30 for the year. So if you had 6 credits of dual enrollment when you come in, that 6 can count towards the 30 you have to have for the year for it to renew for sophomore year. And you're going to have to meet these renewal requirements each year by the end of the year. So at the end of your freshman year, you got to have 30 credits. End of sophomore year, 60 credits. And end of junior year, 90 credits. And then lastly, we have the Hope Scholarship. It's $2,800. You need to graduate with a minimum 3.0 GPA. There is no application process for that. That would be awarded by the college. And it's for freshman year only. That said, after freshman year, if you 3.0 GPA and 30 credits for the year, then you can gain life beginning in your sophomore year. So that $2,800 award that's only for freshman year can go up to $5,000 a year. And to continue renewing that, then you would fall under life scholarship moving forward. So then there are enhancements that go on top of Palmetto Fellows and life. The $2,500 STEM enhancement would begin sophomore year, but to receive that, you have to earn that during your freshman year. You have to earn 14 credit hours in approved STEM prefixes during your freshman year. If you don't earn it during your freshman year, then you would not be able to get the STEM enhancement going forward. But the good news on that is you can count those AP and dual enrollment credits. If they fall within those STEM prefixes, you can count that towards your 14 that you need for the year. So say you took a math class and it has 3 credits, that would be 3 credits towards that STEM enhancement. So you'd already be 3 credits ahead on earning your 14 first year during freshman year. While with Palmetto Fellows, you can't count those AP or dual enrollment credits for the 30 for the year, they can count for the 14 for the STEM credits. Then it's similar with the accounting majors. They can also earn an accounting enhancement of $2,500 on top of what Palmetto Fellows. And the prefixes are similar, there's just a few more in the accounting that are available to earn your 14. And it works exactly the same way. Any dual enrollment that you may have had in high school that has one of those prefixes that you need for the 14, it can count towards your 14 year. And then last but not least is the education enhancement. That's also a $2,500 award. But with the education enhancement, students have to sign an education enhancement agreement each year, confirming that they will teach in the South Carolina Public School after graduation. That is a contract that if you were to not fulfill the agreement, it does become a loan with interest retroactive to when you took the loan. So you just want to be aware of that when signing it, that it becomes a loan if you don't fulfill the contract. But if you're going to stay in South Carolina, it's a great way to help fund your education. And lastly, institutional aid. It's a type of financial aid awarded, again, directly from the university itself. As I mentioned before, you can't take institutional aid at one school and have it at another. It's only good at the institution where it's awarded. And these scholarships can help offset the costs associated. There are different types of institutional aid. There's merit-based, which would be like your grades, GPA, and also I would point out some schools, like at AU, you don't have to have SAT and ACT scores to be considered for admission, but it can help you when it comes to trying to get those merit-based scholarships. So it's something to think about. Maybe you weren't planning to take those in terms of trying to get into a school, but it might help you when it comes to financial aid to try to take those SATs. And then also academic programs, they may have departmental scholarships. At AU, our dance department has where you can audition during your senior year. You can go audition to see if you can get a dance scholarship. So there's different types of departmental scholarships that may be available. So you can also talk to admissions about that with whatever you're interested in majoring in to see if there's any scholarships you might want to audition for prior to coming freshman year. And then last but not least, if you have gotten all your scholarships, you've done your FAFSA, and you still have a little bit of a gap that you need to cover, there are private loan options available. For student borrowers, most of the time, they're going to need a cosigner just because they haven't built up enough credit yet. Or a private loan can also be done in the parent's name. And the FAFSA is often not required by these lenders. Something you want to consider when you're looking at private loans is you want to compare the origination fees, what has the lower interest rate, and factors like that. And also with the federal loans, you have a 6-month grace period before you have to repay, but most private lenders, that's going to be a 60-day grace period before you have to start repaying those. And schools legally can't recommend specific lenders, but we can offer comparison tools like this one that AU has, where you can shop around for different private loans. And then from the FAFSA, on the same FAFSA website, parents can apply for the PLUS loan. Biological or adoptive parents of dependent children, if you have a legal guardianship, the guardian would not be able to apply for a PLUS loan. Only in these situations of biological or adoptive of a dependent student. They do require a credit check, and there is a high origination fee of 4.288%. That's going to be applied before the loan is dispersed to the student's account. And just like with that MPN that the student has to complete, the parent has to complete a PLUS master promissory note on the FAFSA site before the loan will be able to disperse. And I know we said before it's important to take the least available with the regular student loans, the federal direct loans. But when it comes to the PLUS loan, we encourage you to take the maximum, and the reason for that, when you request the maximum, is because there is that origination fee that comes off, and so if you go ahead and request the maximum, then we can adjust down to what you only need to take. The difference is, if you need more, you're going to have to do another PLUS loan application, and then that'll be another origination fee on top of that. So in the long run, it can cost you more if you have to do more than one PLUS loan application. So it's usually best to go ahead and request the maximum, and then we do that math for you to take into account that origination fee. I've seen that many times before where they'll need $5,000 to pay the bill, but they didn't factor in that origination fee, and so they didn't request it. And then unfortunately, that application. So there's federal work study, and that is for, that's based on financial need for federal work study. When you complete that FAFSA, and it depends on when you apply, your level of need, and the school's funding level. However, at schools like AU, we offer work study to anybody that wants to do it. It just would not be coming from the federal funds. At AU, we have funds to pay work study if you don't qualify for federal work study. There's all kinds of opportunities at AU for work study. Things like we have our version of Starbucks, which is Books and Beans, and then the library. The great thing about work study is if you need somebody for those indirect costs, or if you want to even try to use it to help pay for your education. With work study, the employer is on campus, so you don't have to worry about transportation to get there, and they're going to tend to be more flexible in terms of how many hours you can work, working with you about your class schedule, because they realize you're a student. Those work study funds do get paid directly to the student, but they can be used to help pay for tuition or whatever. Basically, it's your paycheck. You can do whatever you want. And so outside scholarships, again, like I said, every penny counts. You can, another one that I thought of is, I come from Abbeville County, and there's the telephone company there. They have a scholarship for people who are customers. So there's just all kinds of scholarships out there. And like coworker of mine says the worst they can say is no. So just give it a shot and see. You never know what you might end up getting awarded. And even $100 is $100 you have. So what are the next steps? It depends on where you are in the process. Well before the application deadlines, you want to be asking your guidance counselor and teachers to submit things like transcripts, letters of recommendations to the colleges you're interested in, and seeing where you are in terms of trying to earn fellows or life or hope, any of those merit-based scholarships, what you may still need to take care of that, possibly qualify, and complete the admissions process. So, of course, you have to apply to the schools where you want to go. So you need to be taking care of that and submit that FAFSA as soon as possible. Like I said, it's now open, so you can go ahead and be getting started on that. And if you are selected for verification, again, try to take care of that as soon as possible, because that will help keep from delaying your financial aid report packaging, so that you can find out what you're looking at as quickly as possible. And we have these resources, the FAFSA website. Chi is where you can learn more about kind of fellows and life and hope, and then of course the tuition agreement. And I appreciate you allowing me to come up here and speak, and I'm going to hand it over to Amy Kate.
Hi guys, how are we doing tonight? Doing okay? Nice and awake, ready to go? 6:15, maybe 6:10, going strong. I love it. Thank you guys so much for being here. I know probably most of you guys had a long work day today. You may be ready for some dinner, all that kind of fun stuff. I would just love to chat with you a little bit about AU, some of the institutional aid that we do have to offer, both with merit-based and independent-based, just like Renee said. I also would love to just give a great shout out to Brian and Renee right now, because they just are an incredible resource we will provide this night for you guys, so that we can have the conversation about what does it look like to invest in your future, because that's truly what this is, having this conversation. And whether you end up at AU or end up somewhere else, I know that this is a big decision for a lot of you guys to make, and kind of figuring out how to best make this happen for you and your students. So I also just want to thank you guys so much for being here tonight and being willing to have that conversation with us today. Really quickly, I just wanted to ask with a raise of hands. How many of you have been to Anderson University before? Fantastic. Now, how many of you have been to an official campus visit for Anderson University before? All right, not as many, but still a good few. That's fantastic. Now, my last question, how many of you, have started an application to Anderson University? Okay, not as many people. And then final question, how many of you have submitted that application to Anderson University? Go ahead, people, I love it, that is great. So those couple steps are where I'm going to start today, mainly because we'd love to go ahead and start having a conversation about financial aid in general, but also about Anderson University. So you guys know, Anderson's right down the road from y'all. It's a beautiful campus, lots of different things to offer. If you haven't been there on an official campus visit, I would love to just go ahead and invite you to come. We do have a school excuse, so you can easily, take that if you'd like. It's right down the road from you, basically in your backyard. And it's also really nice to just know what is in the area. For some of you who might be like, yeah, but I live here, like, I don't necessarily want to go to school or down the road from where I live. I totally understand that as well, but I want you to come and experience our campus for yourself, because it truly is a different world when you step in that square mile of an acre. I don't know how to explain it, but when you step onto our campus, it truly is something so special and something so different, and I'd love for you guys to experience that for yourself. For those of you who have gone ahead and started an application, fantastic. I do encourage you to go ahead and finish that application. You can apply through Anderson University's website, as well as through the Common App. So if you didn't know, there's two ways to do it. You can go through either one. If you are to go through Anderson University's website, you might be asked to have a $40 registration fee or application fee. Feel free to let Brian know or email the admissions office directly and say, hey, actually, I went to TL Hannah's financial aid night, And the girl that stood up on stage said that I could get a fee waiver code. Okay, fee waiver code, that's the words that I'm saying right now. Please feel free to ask for that. And you might be asking, who is this girl that's standing up on stage? My name is Annie Kate Calvert. I serve as the Director of Traditional Undergrad Admissions at Anderson University. I actually went to Anderson from 2017 to 2021. I got my my Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry. I was originally on a pre-med track, okay? So I was planning to go to med school. I played soccer all 4 years at Anderson. I worked in the admission office through that AU work study all 4 years at Anderson. I loved every single bit about my time there, loved sharing that with others. I will say I tore my ACL my junior year of college while playing soccer and got introduced to the world of physical therapy. You might be asking, why in the world are you telling me this? Because I, in fact, decided after I graduated from AU to go on to physical therapy school, actually. And all of this stuff with FAFSA, I experienced both on the undergrad level and the graduate level. So I've been there. I know it's a big undertaking, and investing in something like an education really does take a lot of resources. And we respect that. We respect, the time and the effort and the care that you're putting into that. And as someone who's been through it myself, I want to kind of meet you there and have the conversation from, hey, I understand, I've been here before, and I'd love to continue to have this conversation together. I ended up getting my doctorate of physical therapy in December of 2023, worked as a physical therapist in the community for about 2 years, and then I had the awesome opportunity to come back to Anderson and essentially share my experience with anyone and everyone who will listen, but anyone who's interested in potentially an undergrad as well as a graduate degree through our school. So thankful to be able to stand up in front of you guys today. For my job, I am going to go ahead and encourage you guys to finish an application so that we can continue to have a conversation with you. I'm going to invite you to come on campus, have an official visit, but I also want to share with you what some institutional aid opportunities might look like for you guys, all right? So we talked about different GPAs, different test scores, things that might get you certain levels of scholarship at Anderson. And one thing that you need to know is that if you are to come to Anderson University, all right, you will receive anywhere between $12,000 to $18,000 of merit-based institutional aid dependent on your GPA and or test scores or classroom. Okay, it's kind of a big deal. So when you are to come on a campus visit, we'll talk through what those little rents look like. But yes, Renee said you are not required to send in an ACT or SAT scores in order to get admitted to Anderson University. However, we highly encourage those for some of our highest level scholarship. If you were to come to Anderson and not submit any test scores, you would receive, as long as you had a 3.0 GPA, you would receive $12,000. That's part of our AU grant. Okay, so that's awesome. You're like, okay, I got a 3.0 GPA. I don't have any test scores right now. $12,000 in my pocket. That's great. But let's say you were to go ahead and get some test scores. You could actually bump up that merit-based scholarship level anywhere to 14th and 15th and 16th, then ultimately $18,000, depending on what your GPA looks like, what your test scores look like, and then what that class rank looks like as well. If you have any more specific questions about that, you can definitely ask Brian, and we can get more clear levels of what that aid might look like. You're also welcome to come on Anderson's campus. We'll have that conversation with ourselves. You don't even necessarily have to come on a campus tour if you'd like to just schedule a meeting to talk with your admission counselor and have that conversation of, okay, well, I've heard about financial aid, like in general, and then I've heard about financial aid at Anderson. What would this look like for me? Seriously, guys, y'all are right down the road, so why not take advantage of this great opportunity? And there's also something that we love to talk about as well, our competitive scholarships. Okay, have y'all ever heard of the Denmark Scholarship? No? Okay, so this is a scholarship where if you have a 3.0 GPA and then certain test scores, once again, this is where test scores come involved, you're able to apply for this scholarship that can be awarded to you up to $3,000 per year, okay? You need to have those minimum requirements, that 3.0 GPA as well as certain test scores, and then you write a short little essay prompt, nothing more than 500 words. You get reviewed by a scholarship committee, and then they help select how much award you will receive for that Denmark scholarship, okay? That's another scholarship opportunity. Another opportunity that we have is something called our Fellows competition. All right, so that is one, if you are familiar with people who have gone to Anderson University, that's a bigger competition, all right? The stakes are a little bit higher. The minimum requirements are a 3.5 GPA and then some higher test scores, all right? So What does that mean? What is the fellows competition? So that is one of our opportunities that we have to provide an even larger scholarship amount for our students. And those scholarships vary from an AU Fellows, which is a tuition scholarship, to a Fellows, it's like the Fellows rank, and then that is tuition and a room stipend, and then a Presidential Fellows, which is tuition, room, and board. Okay? It's a pretty big deal, right? It's basically the whole thing. And so we say that to you guys because if you have them in the requirements, you will be invited to apply for those scholarships. And then if you are selected, that application involves obviously the test scores as well as an essay, 2 letters of recommendation, and a resume. The deadline for that, by the way, is December 1st. So if that's something that you think, hey, that sounds good, why not try it? Go ahead and get your application into Anderson University first. You'll have access to something called our admission portal. If you have the minimum requirements and you've sent in your test scores for those scholarship opportunities, they will automatically populate within your admission portal. You can apply right then and there to those scholarships. The deadline for the fellow scholarship is December 1st of this year. The deadline for Denmark is March 1st, so you have a little bit, or February 1st, so you have a little bit of time with that. But I would encourage you guys to just go ahead and get the ball rolling, get it started. Something to be aware of is our fellows competition, that, big kahuna, if you will, the tuition, room, and board. That doesn't necessarily stack with the money that you might already be receiving from FAFSA or the state, or even with other institutional awards. That essentially absorbs all of it. Okay, so you would get that tuition, room, and board paid for if you were to be awarded that large amount, but it wouldn't necessarily be stacked on top of some of the other things that we talked about tonight. That's always good to be aware of. However, everything else that we mentioned, including the Denmark scholarship, does stack. So you really might have more opportunities for aid at Anderson than you might even realize. So we encourage you to continue to have this conversation with us, with Brian, with Renee. We want to help you regardless of whether or not you end up going to Anderson University or not. You guys are our neighbors. You're in our backyard. We love you guys. We want y'all to love us. And just spend some time getting to know the heart of Anderson University and how we truly want to care and help you guys provide for y'all's future. So if you haven't already, like I said, please go ahead and start taking care of some of those next steps. I'll also be available before y'all leave today to kind of answer any questions about anything, whether that be my own journey as a student at Anderson, any admission questions, application, things like that, as well as some of our scholarship competitions. You might be asking, okay, well, if I fill out those scholarship competitions and then they're reviewed by the scholarship committee, what happens next? Well, especially for our bigger competition, like the fellows, if you were selected by the scholarship committee, you would then be invited to interview on Anderson's campus, for both a group interview and an individual interview, for us to get to know you a little bit more and see what award level you might be able to receive because of that competition. Then you might be asking a question even further, well, what are you looking for? And I want to go ahead and encourage a lot of you that we're not necessarily looking for the student with the highest test score or GPA. We're actually looking for a student who is all about AU, who is a great mission fit of what Anderson's all about, who can step on Anderson's campus and get involved and who wants to do so, who can be a servant leader and step up and come alongside of their peers and just love on them and help lead them to Christ. And we have awesome opportunities to do that if you were to come and be a student at Anderson. And we'd love the opportunity to get to know you through that interview process as well. There's one other competitive scholarship that I did want to point out, especially for you guys, and that's our hometown scholarship. So because y'all are living in the Anderson community, that would be available to you as well. And that is another larger scholarship competition where students are invited to apply with an essay, different things that'll pop up under your admission portal if that's something that you qualify for. You'll also be contacted by your admission counselor to make sure that there's some follow-up there. But you'll have the opportunity to once again come onto campus and interview for another large scholarship opportunity. So lots of different ways for you guys to show who you are and why you'd be a great fit for Anderson University. And in the meantime, we'd love to just continue that conversation of what it would look like to, provide resources to be able to pay for college, because we know that it's a big undertaking. Now, all that being said, I would love if I could just pray for you guys before I hand it back over to Brian, mainly because Anderson is a Christian institution, yes. But it truly is integrated in every single thing that we do, that we want to love and serve people and ultimately point them to Christ. Now, whether it is you end up at Anderson or whether you end up somewhere else, that's okay. The Lord has an incredible purpose and plan for your life, and I truly believe that for each and every one of you sitting here, and I think it's a privilege that I get to come and speak to you guys this afternoon. And this is not on accident either. Like, how cool that I get to hopefully speak some encouragement over you guys. But whether or not you do this or whether or not you don't, that's okay. Everyone's welcome at Anderson, and we truly want to love and serve you as best we can. But I would love to pray for you guys before, like I said, I hand it back over to Brian and we continue the conversation. So let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for this night. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about college, the fact that it might be an option for some of these students and the next step that they want to take. Lord, thank you for Anderson University, the fact that we live in a beautiful, thriving, wonderful community such as Anderson, South Carolina. That is so incredible and a place that I call home, Lord. I'm lucky to be able to call it home and to be able to work at a place like AU. I'm so thankful for these students who are sitting right here in this room, Lord, who are starting to have conversations about what it might look like for them to take that next step, whatever that might be, Lord. And I just pray as things might, invoke some anxiousness and maybe overwhelming at times and nervous or just worried about what that might look like, Lord, for them to be able to afford college. I just pray that you give them peace. I pray that more than anything, Lord, you would remind them that you provide and you will go before them and you will make a way in every little thing. Lord, so I pray for each one of them tonight that you would just give them encouragement as they continue to take the next step, whatever that might be in their college decision process, application process, or financial aid journey. Lord, I pray that you would come before them, go beside them, and help them to know that they are not alone in this journey and you truly do have a great purpose and great plan for each and every one of them. Lord, thank you so much for tonight and the opportunity to share all things they do, but even more importantly, Lord, all about you. Thank you, Lord, and I pray. Amen.
Thank you so much for Dave and Kate for presenting tonight. I know our parents and sisters take away a lot of information from what you shared. I'm going to wrap up with a short piece about TLH and the scholarships that are available through our website, and maybe just a little bit more information. So we won't go too much longer. So I mentioned we came in late. We have a fast and help night on November 11th. More information will be posted in the senior Google classroom about that. And then I want to talk about the TLH scholarship information. On our website is TLH. From the main website, we go to Counselling and Records. I want to show you how to get there. And then from there, you're going to go to More and the Scholarships. And then here are all the scholarships that Renee mentioned here at the top, like Hope, Life, Palmetto. This middle section has some national scholarship search engines. I like Big Future. I'm a big fan of that one. You can filter that in a number of different ways. And then down the bottom, this is where our seniors can apply to specific scholarships that are sponsored by various community organizations, like the Q Club. You can see there's a whole ton of them here. Some of them are unique, or I should say sponsored by TLH, like I think Stephen Thorne is. But in order to try to summarize this a little better, what we've got here is, and I'll put this out in an email and in the senior Google classroom. This is each of those TLH scholarships, telling you whether it's school-based or community-based. It tells you whether you apply through the Google Classroom or you have to print out an application and mail it in. So I know the print is very small, but I just want to give you a quick little snapshot. This is a 2-page piece that Ms. Anita King did for us today. And again, this will be emailed out in our senior Google Classroom, and I'll try to send it out directly to our parents as well. But it gives you just a brief snapshot of what the scholarships are about, what you have to provide, recommendation, things like that. So that I think would be very helpful. I want to share 2 or 3 other things with you real quickly. Recently, I read about a new net price calculator. A net price calculator is an online tool that you can use to get an idea of how much you might have to pay at a particular college. And each college financial aid website should have a link to where you can go in and put in information about parent income, number of siblings in college, things like that, and it'll generate an estimate of what you can expect to pay. Now, the original net price calculator is something I became familiar with when my youngest daughter was a senior in high school. I have 3 daughters, and 2 of them, my middle daughter and the oldest daughter, they both went to large public universities in the state of Georgia where we live, and they received the Hope Scholarship, which is basically, kind of similar to South Carolina. And so my youngest daughter came to me one day and said, Dad, I'm interested in, she mentioned a private college in North Carolina, and I said, Rachel, you've got the Hope Scholarship here. It's going to pay for all your tuition. All you have to pay for is your room and board. And she said, well, Dad, there's something called the net price calculator. We can go online and put in our family's income information. And because I'm an educator and my wife is a teacher, we were eligible for quite a bit of financial aid at this private university. And it surprised me because I didn't, she was talking to some friends at summer camp, and they all talked about, some opportunities that one of the girls she was friends with learned about. So that's how I found out about the net price calculator. Even as a school counselor, I had not known about that. Now there's a new net price calculator that's out, and I've got a link at the end of this presentation where it's shorter. You're just going to enter some information like family income, assets, number of siblings in college or children in college, and it's going to generate a range of what they would expect might be the least amount you pay per year to the most that you might pay per year, and then like maybe a middle range, kind of an estimate there. And I did it today just hypothetically to kind of get information back from years ago, and it generated a estimate within 2 or 3 minutes. So that can be very helpful, and it's meant to really make you understand that you don't necessarily have to pay the sticker price of what a private college is advertising as their overall cost. We know that many of you will be going to public colleges and universities, and those fees are pretty much set in stone. But if anybody is interested in some of the private universities like AU, the net price calculator is a great asset. All right. Speaking of finances, I'm a big fan of worksheets and spreadsheets. When my youngest daughter was applying to several colleges, she kind of did her own little Excel spreadsheet, but I found this one, and I'll share this again in the classroom. This is a nice layout, but if you had 3 different schools, and you had 3 different financial aid offers, you could input all the information, and then as you work through it, it's got all the different factors to consider, like works. How much of that money you're being awarded is scholarships and grants? How much of it is going to be a loan? You could be awarded a financial aid package, and they can be vastly different, right, Renee, from school to school. One financial aid package could cover your costs, but the vast majority of it could be coming in the form of loans, which we want to avoid, obviously. And the other school's financial aid package could be coming from the majority of grants, of course, that don't have to be repaid. So this worksheet, I think, helps you compare apples to apples, and helps you, get a good understanding of what those packages might be from the different schools. So I've got all the resources right here linked, and I'll be sharing this through the Google Classroom. I think that's all the things I wanted to share. And guys, we are at 6:30, 6:31, so we're going to get you out here in just a minute. Before we let you get away, though, just 2 quick things. In a second, we'll have a chance for some Q&A. And then I do have a short Google code, Google survey, QR code I'd love for you to take. It's just 4 or 5 questions, so that when we do this event next year for our rising, for next year's seniors, we can improve what we're doing and get your input. And that's very good. So let's open it up to see if we have any questions about anything that's been presented, or just some other topics we haven't covered, financial aid and scholarships. And we'll kick this off. Once we get one question, then we'll get the ball rolling. Yes?
Renee mentioned earlier that once you start college, you can go from, if you do have good grades, you can go from hope to life. If you start off at life, can you go from life to common fellows?
Good question. Unfortunately, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. I can see where you might think that was an option. One thing I learned tonight is I didn't realize that life had the enhancements, just like Palmetto, I did not realize that Life has the STEM enhancement, teaching, and accounting. So that was new to me. Yes, I have a question over here, yes, sir.
Real quick, do I need a different FSA ID number for each kid in college? I have one already, but I need another one for my next kid.
I believe so. No, oh, you as the parent.
As a parent.
Oh, okay.
Each student has to have their
Okay.
own.
Right.
But if you've already got one,
You're
you
good.
can use that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it may be simpler if your student does theirs first, because then they can send an invite to that email address that you have connected to your AU email. I mean, not AU, your FSA ID.
Yep.
It'll get sent to that email, and then you can click that invite link to complete there, and that way you'll be able to go.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
I know you had mentioned 12,000, 18,000, how it jumps. Is that annually or is that like overall for a 4-year period?
It's each year.
Every year? Okay. Good to think.
Yes.
What's the average AU sticker price? No grants, no scholarships, just out of pocket?
That's a great question. It's right at $49,500.
And that's where, going back to that net price calculator, if you're looking at other schools, like, you can get a real good estimate in talking to our folks here. But if you're considering some other schools, and you don't have the great access that you do here with our folks right in our backyard, that net price calculator can give you a real good idea of what you're going to pay off of the sticker price. I kind of compare it to like the brand new car, because of, you know, if you look at that sticker price on the MSRP, those folks hopefully aren't paying that. You know, you're going to be able to get more aid by, you know, looking for those, the merit-based scholarships and things like that. All right, other questions? Yes?
Do you know if this package purchasing design actually has a government? Oh, good question. I'm trying to remember. I think it was, but I would, if you want to email aid at Anderson University, you guys do, and I can, respond to you.
Yeah, okay, yeah, good question. All right, yes?
I noticed a lot of the campuses we visited said it was test optional for the application process. So if the child chooses to not use their test scores, how do they do that with scholarships?
Yes, so you still, as long as you had a 3.0 GPA, you would still be eligible for something called the AU grant, which is our lowest level of scholarship and merit-based aid. But that 3.0 GPA and no test scores whatsoever would get you that $12,000 per year for scholarship. Now, your test scores would help you get a little bit higher or even potentially your class rank. You just need to have the GPA in either a test score or the class rank. But that can help you kind of move up in some of our merit-based levels.
And can you change your mind if you are in the law?
Yes, you can send your ACT, SAT scores whenever. We do just need to have them by March 1st in order to provide that financial aid package for you that we start working on in the spring. And we do super score, so you can take it a lot.
Okay. Yes?
The 49,000 you mentioned, is that claim included in the board?
Yes, sir. That'll be,
How much would that, you didn't give for that package, how much?
yes, so it typically depends on the year. And so that would be something if you'd like to come and have a conversation with us within our admissions office, and we can talk about what that cost would look like for your individual student, and we can definitely.
Other questions? Okay, I think it's been a great night. I hope you found this helpful. I've been wanting to do this for some time, and finally, decided to put it all together, and we're real grateful that you all could come. I would ask that you don't mind if this QR code is working, have a second to amplify the short survey questions we had. And our folks tonight, Renee and Mary Kay, are going to stick around in case you have questions for them. And I'll be around too as well. Thank you all so much.
I even turned the heater on at 2.4. Well, if there's something wrong, we know what's wrong.
Yes. It's still able to apply, so that would be a competition on it. Yes. That is technically the purpose of the decision. However, students do tend to mind it. So I'm sure they have ever seen before, that would be a conversation that you would like to put on. So you love that, thank you so much.
You were reaching out.
Yeah, what's your name? Okay, perfect. So what I can do is essentially we have so it typically does take a 4-week turnaround and 3 weeks, right? So you know when you apply first in your that's how okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. Awesome. What we'll mean is I can definitely.
First thing on your list.
And it's got it's just in the list, which typically is in the list. And so your name is Charlotte Wilford. I love Dr. Red. Yes. I love that. Oh, 100%. Yes. I can text Dr. Red. So glad. I'll be honest. Yes. Okay. I will not forget. That's amazing. Okay. So I'll just check on the status of that. Have you submitted the board last year? Yes. Have that done? Y'all all explained. Okay. I didn't get a link. But it's in my resume. Yes. Yes, you can't upload it yourself. You have to request it through your guidance. Okay. So then I requested it from him. Okay. But then I don't know. Perfect. So that might be one of the reasons. Yes. Okay, because I can go check that for you. Whenever I check, have your application status and all your contact information is through that website. So if you're okay with me potentially contacting you after I check it out, yes, for sure. But if he hasn't submitted that transcript, then that might be that was the reason why you haven't gotten a decision yet. Because that transcript helps us know your GPA and your class rank. So lots of times when we're like, well, I submitted my stuff, it's that missing transcript link that is what we need. But I can definitely find that out. Yes, of course. Thank you guys so much. So nice to meet you. Yes, of course. If y'all need anything, just let us know. You can send Dr. Rhett your chat. But thank you guys. It is actually Aubrey Hogs. Yes. She's fantastic. Her email is ahogshead@andersonuniversity.edu.
He needs to talk to you about spring spring of this year.
Okay.
One of our sons is currently in training.
Yes.
And he's looking to get the spring.
Okay.
I was asking about that was scholarship.
Yes.
Eligibility for him.
Absolutely. So, if a student is transferring from an institution, then he would not be eligible for the fellows competition. However, there's a different level of merit-based aid based on his performance at the TCTC that he would be able to potentially qualify for as a spring transfer student. So that's definitely something that we can, let me see if I can get your information, and then I can see if I can follow up with you on that as well. Would he be interested in transferring this spring?
Well, yes, so he's already, I think, put in an application and got accepted.
Oh, amazing,
Yeah.
that's so great. Perfect, and what's his name?
His name is Luke Heller.
And or Lucas, with a C?
Lucas, yes.
Perfect, so what I will do is I will look up his name and make sure that Ben Henley, he is the admission, well, Aubrey, and Ben, they're both Ben works the transfer students specifically, and Aubrey is over the College of Christian Studies. But I'll make sure that at least one of them, if not someone else, reaches out to you guys and can give you the specific, aid numbers for, transfer students as well.
Yes, he also does cross-release for.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So it helps with the fact that he's familiar with, that he's familiar obviously with our campus. He knows like, I love that. That's so great. And so, yeah, that definitely can be part of the conversation as well, for sure. Thank you. Yes. Yes, sir. I'm
Yeah, man, appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Of course, thanks y'all. If you need anything, please let us know, and I'll definitely be reaching out on behalf of Lucas. And then, and what's your name?
Oh, my name is Chase.
Chase. Are you on Chase?
Oh, yeah.
That's okay, you won't hurt my feelings. However, it's always a great option. So, yes.
Good turns.
I graduated from there and finished college.
Oh, I love that. It's still just as cute and charming as it ever was, but, you know, it's getting a lot bigger now.
Yeah.
So, I love it. Awesome. Well, we'll reach out about Lucas and make sure to connect with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Chase.
Family affair.
That's it. We got this.
Well, good night tonight.
Yeah,
That was good, and I love it, nice Q&A, at the end, it was good. So I really appreciate y'all, taking time out of your, after hours, to come here and share with our
Of
students.
course. And I apologize for being 5 minutes behind schedule. We had an afternoon visit that lasted well into the afternoon. And I was like,
That's fine.
and then I was like, I don't know where this is, but we got it. And so it is perfect fun. Also, so excited to be able to continue to make connections at Counselling. We
Yeah.
truly
Yeah.
want to be a service to your students.
Yeah.
So you can definitely let them know, especially if they bring up financial concerns with
Yeah.
you,
Mhm.
that even just having a conversation with a financial aid counselor or an
Right,
enrichment
yeah,
counselor
yeah.
doesn't mean you have to go to
Right,
Anderson, right?
and you guys in Tri-County are both great about that, you know. Tri-County gets their free Fast for Friday thing, where students can go there, they don't care where you're going, they don't have to do your FAFSA, and you guys, and similar, you know, kind of just working that to help our kids. 'Cause, you know, especially for our first generation kids, that FAFSA is key.
It is,
You know?
it is.
So, we appreciate it, we would look to do this every year.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to cut out through the back door, so
Yes, sir.
drop off my laptop and tell them the way out there.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Of course. Great job, Renee. She was fun.
This is my first in-person one.
Wow. We love it. You already know Kevin Salmon is sitting right here. So we haven't met the legend.